Krishna devotees, the Dut Pranam, all goes to Srila Prabhupada. We're just waiting for Sankarshan Prabhu to join. So be there for a minute. It's mentioned that he's going to join now. Let's see. Somebody can do some kirtan meantime. Maybe Jayarada Madhav. Please start the kirtan. Somebody want to go and sing the kirtan, Jayarada Madhav?
I can do it, Prabhuji.
Please go ahead, yeah.
Jaya Radha Madhav Kunj Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhav Kunj Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhav Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I think Sankarshan Prabhu, you joined, no? I saw.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you so much, Madaji.
Thank
you so much singing nicely. So we have Sankarshan Saran Prabhu. So let's first of all, let's welcome all of you saying 3 times Haribol. 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 So we'll be covering today the 15th chapter, Yoga of the Supreme Lord. It's a very important verse, and it reveals the ultimate truth, the absolute truth in this chapter. And please listen this very carefully, how things are happening in this world and who is the Supreme Lord. The yoga of the Supreme, that's what it is. So Sankarshan Prabhu will take us to that level, and let's welcome His Grace Sankarshan Prabhu saying 3 times Haribol. Haribol.
Haribol. Haribol. Haribol.
Haribol. Please start, Prabhuji.
First of all, my apologies to all devotees. How come I am having a echo back? Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhuji, you can hear
Okay, I was getting an echo back. No problem. Okay, thank you. Again, Mataji and Prabhuji, sorry. Sometimes you are going for a presentation, and what happens is in the office, the printer does not work. And today, what happened is my internet, it was working only in the morning since now. And just as I'm trying to log in, the internet stopped working, so that was a little cause of my being a little late. So apologies to all of you. So today, I have been given the task of talking about giving a small session on 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And well, first of all, I will ask all of you to bless me, because I'm still learning as you. So I could make mistakes. So please don't take it to your heart. And at the same time, I would give all credits to my gurus. Especially, I got all the material. I did all the study work from Gaurang Darshan Prabhu. So I have tried to summarize that. So I will share the screen from here. Let's see here. So you can see, I hope you can see the.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, sure. Okay. And let me make sure you can also see. Can you see this, the slide also here? I mean, these 15 chapter. Can we see that?
Yes,
Can you
Prabhuji.
see? Okay. Okay. Good. Okay, perfect. I'm I'm not that good as everybody, So sometimes I do mistakes. So let's start with the prayers, Prabhuji, first. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tado Mudire Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Agyanjana Timrandhasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshurulmintamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vande Aham Shri Guru Shri Yudhapad Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Swavadutam Parjana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyasevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So Hare Krishna, dear devotees, probably I'll try to be a little bit interactive. It's for the benefit of everybody and it makes participation also interesting. So if anybody can tell me your experience, right? That anytime you went to a place, maybe to a friend's place or maybe to some place other than just like that, and then you decided, oh, you have to come back for something. So what was the cause you ever had to come back to the place you had just left? Anybody? Again, there's no right and wrong answers. We are just we're discussing at a ground zero basic level. Okay.
Could be comfort and familiarity.
Oh, that's nice. There's a good point. Comfort and familiarity. Yeah. Anybody else? Anything else? Yeah,
Your karma.
what is that? Sorry.
It is karma that you have to come back. That was your karma also.
Yeah.
Ask.
Yeah. Thank you, Niru Mataji. Yeah, good. Comfort and familiarity, karma. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, maybe we forgot something. So,
Wow, Gunjan Mataji, thank you. Actually, that's what I was looking for. So it's so many times it happens, as that by mistake we go to a place and we probably leave our phone or maybe leave our wallet or purse or something like that, and then we realize, oh my God, and then we have to rush to get back to it. But sometimes it is also does happen that we after we come home we realize we forgot something and then we don't care about it, right? Did any of us had to go through that type of situation? Like, if anybody can give me an example in your life.
Prabhuji, one time I forgot my driving license and I was like, I should rush back. And my Prabhu was like, okay, you have the soft copy of that driving license. So no need to rush back. So that came to my mind.
Yeah, that's very good. And yeah, that makes sense. So you have some other alternative. Anybody else? Any other situations?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Just my recent experience, sometimes there are goodies bag return gifts and my friends are calling, you forgot your goodie bag or you forgot your return gift. I said, oh no, okay, it's fine, some other time.
Yep.
That happened 2-3 times.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a very, very nice example. I really appreciate everybody participating and giving their inputs here. So actually same thing happens in the material world with us, right? If we start valuing something so much more, right? That now our value is so much more that even we get a chance to go to the spiritual world, people are going to come back because in their mind, they're so attached to that thing. It's still a material thing, right? Interestingly, it's still a material thing. But because our attachment is so much to that little thing, big, small, some people they build big palace, right? Big homes, big car, big bank balance. And they're so attached to it, and because of that attachment, even if they they just have to come back, as that's one of the good reasons. That's other than what was discussed, suppose because of karma or this or that, but that's one of the main reasons why people, I mean, anybody, an individual or a jiva here, I would say a jiva decides to come back. So I will start with a small story, right? This is a story of Narada and Kailash. There was a guy, his name was Kailash. He was like me, So, and he was very much attached to this world, and what happened, so when I say attached means he was in his, you can say he was in his 30s or 40s. I am well older than that anyway, but I wish I was 30s and 40s though, but okay, anyway. So what happens is, by chance, Narada Muni sees him and Narada Muni's heart blesses him for some reason. So he says, Kailash, see, I'm going to Vaikuntha. Would you like to join me? Now, Kailash says to Narada Muni, Narada Muni ji, okay, you know what? I just got my blessed with a son, and I want to stay in this world and enjoy some pastimes with him. And after some days, I will be willing to join you. So Narada Muni says, okay, go ahead. So Narada Muni comes after, say, another 10, 15 years, assuming now this boy will be a teenage. So now this guy can come with me. So he again proposes, Kailash, are you ready? I'm going to Vaikuntha and I like you. I want to take you. I'll take you to Lord Krishna. He said, Narada Muni, please excuse me this time, because I recently got my son engaged, and I'm expecting a marriage ceremony to happen. So if you can please wait for another some more years. So Narada Muni goes back again, and then he comes and he sees that, okay, that this guy is now having grandson, and he says, Kailash, now is it a good time? Because now you see that you're getting a chance. It's a very special opportunity to go back to Lord Krishna in Vaikuntha. And again, Kailash is not ready yet. So he gives some reason, and so he says, please, last time I'm requesting you, can, after 5 years, we'll go together. So he says, okay. So after 5 years, Narada comes, he said, Kailash, they say there is no Kailash there. Kailash is already, because out of the home, it is said, late Kailash now. There is no more Kailash Nivas. Now it is late Kailash Nivas, right? So Kailash has died. So Narad Muni feels sad. Okay, I don't know where did he go. I was trying to take him to Vaikuntha. But then he sees, as he was walking out, he sees a dog comes, that's a family dog. He comes running towards him and he says, Narada, I'm Kailash. He's barking at him and he's saying, Narada, I'm Kailash, I'm Kailash. Oh, Narada, oh, Kailash, Prabhu, how about you coming back to me, with me to Vaikuntha? He says, Narad Muni, it's such a nice proposal. I would definitely like to come back. But, after, I see that my kids, they are very irresponsible. They don't understand what is security. And you see that there are so many thugs out there. So I want to be taking care of them for some more time. So, okay. Narad Muni goes, then after some days, he sort of gives up. But anyway, once while he was passing by, he decides to drop by. So he wants to see what is Kailash doing. So he comes and sees the dog is dead. And now there is no more that Kailash dog. So he starts going back. And then as he's walking back, he hears a hissing sound. And this hissing sound is coming from a snake. And the snake is saying, Narada, I am Kailash. And Narada says, oh, Kailash, what happened to you? Say, I was like a dog. And then, I realized that, okay, that my kids, they put all their money in the bank. And then later on, I was very happy. And then I saw that they were little, very irresponsible regarding their the fields. So I'm guarding their fields as a snake. So if any mice or squirrels, anything come, then I just I eat them away or scare them away. So that way, I'm making sure that the field is protected. So we see that the living entity is still so much attached to his so-called sons. So Narada feels really he feels that why is he wasting his time on him? So he just calls his son and says, you see, guys, come here. There's a snake here. Come see this guy. And then those guys see, and then they start beating him. And basically they eventually kill him. So Kailash, while dying, he sees Narada through his eyes. And then the next life, he remembers Narada and he becomes a devotee. But I'm just trying to tell, that living entity in this world is so bewildered. He is so much in illusion. He thinks this is me and mine, right? So, and in this illusion, he forgets what is the what is the main goal of life. He forgets that he should be, even though he's responsible, he should be detached, because everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. So I just wanted to start with this story. So we'll go to the next piece. So this chapter is basically divided into 4 sections. The main contents are material world to spiritual world, migration of living entities, Krishna is the maintainer of the universe, and summary of the Vedas, right? So we will start from the first section, which is material world to spiritual world. So it is, here we see that there's a yoga of the supreme, and material world is like a banyan tree. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upwards and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita 15:1, right? So we all know that the material world is temporary. But then how come a temporary material world has an imperishable banyan tree? Can anybody try to answer me that? If the material world is temporary, impermanent, how come there's a tree which will still exist even after the material world? Interesting thing here. Anybody want to give a try? Again, don't worry, just come up. Even I'm learning, so feel confident and answer if you can. Otherwise, we'll proceed. Okay, I'll proceed, no problem. So what we see that if anybody has seen a banyan tree, right? This banyan tree is like this. So we see that it's like it has its branches, right? And then you see from the branches again roots go through. Like I have not seen many banyan trees in the United States other than in the southern part of the United States and some islands in the United States. But in India, it was a very common sight to see banyan trees, that it's a huge tree and it can keep going for kilometers. You know, there's one of them is like really in Calcutta, they say it's the biggest banyan tree, which is like about close to half a kilometer or something like that. It's a huge banyan tree. So it's basically one branch, then it will drop some roots. You see, you're seeing here the branches dropping the roots, and then again from there are new branches, and again it will drop roots. So that's how a banyan tree is. And the interesting thing is that this tree, right, is not a physical tree, but it's a reflection of our desires, right? So let me, like, I'm just trying to see, like, so what happens is it's the reflection is coming from the desire. You see that it's from the spiritual world is the real world, and the desire is based on the desire of the living entity. All his attachments, everything is sort of reflected into another tree in the material world, which starts from Lord Brahma and downwards. So, and we see that the top part of this tree here is where the the higher living entities are there, and the lower part is where the lower living entities are there. And there are fruits for this tree, and let me see, I think there's another one. Yeah, this is another banyan tree here. So it's an imperishable banyan tree, and one who knows this is the knower of the Vedas. So yeah, you can see here. I'm trying to see a picture. I don't have it here anyway. Okay, so so what we see is that this tree is it keeps growing, but it's not. You cannot see it actually in the material world as it is, anything like that. It is there in the spiritual sense. This tree is there in the spiritual sense because our desires are like umpteen. Like there is no number of our desires. There are like n number of desires there, and it can keep going, and even there can be so much that it not one lifetime of Brahma, but multiple lifetimes of Brahma may pass by, but our desires will never get fulfilled. So that's why even this material world, it is temporary, but this banyan tree still remains imperishable. I hope that explains, right? So we understand, like, why this banyan tree is imperishable, because of our desires are imperishable here, and we keep thinking, we keep having more new desires, new things. Always we are thinking how to satisfy our senses. So with that attitude, right? So even Brahma's lifetimes, so many Brahma's lifetimes are done, but our desires are not finished. So it becomes imperishable. So, and because it's a reflection of reality, as we can see here. Like this is another tree, we can see this is the actual tree, and the reflection of the reality is down here. So what happens is it can come and it will be there, even though whenever the material world is created, it comes again, the reflection happens again, right? And when the material world finishes, then all the living entities go back to Mahavishnu. And then again, when he recreates the material world, again, our banyan tree comes into picture. So let's go forward. Okay, so here what Sri Prabhupada gives some good, from his purport, I've just taken some sections. So after the discussion of the importance of Bhakti Yoga, so far, like we have been discussing, like this is part of Bhakti Yoga section, which starts from 7th chapter until 12th chapter. And after that, the Jnana Yoga section starts. So now Prabhupada is saying in his purport here, he's saying that after the discussion of the importance of Bhakti Yoga, one may question, what about the Vedas? It is explained in this chapter that the purpose of Vedic study is to understand Krishna. Actually, Vedas have more than 1 lakh crore verses in there. 1 lakh, yeah. So, and they say that 96% of these verses are karma kandas. So you do this, you get this. You do this, you get this. It's the action reaction. You do a action, you'll get these reactions. If you want to get something, so you do this, japa, yagna, tapa, and you will get this. So 96% of the verses are like that. They are karma kanda sections. So the entanglement of this material world is compared here to a banyan tree. We already discussed this. For one who is engaged in fruitive activities. So when we are doing fruitive activities, when we are doing yaga, tapa, and japa, anything what we are doing is we are doing it for getting some fruit out of there. What are the fruits coming out? The fruits of this banyan tree, if you can see here, you can read. I don't know, it's not possible to read in this slide. Here, maybe in this slide, you can read clearly that it is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So economic development, religiosity, sense gratification, liberation. So these are the fruits of this banyan tree. And with every fruit, again, it's like another root falling down, and again, it keeps going forward. Right? So, and then for one who is engaged in the fruitive activity, there is no end to the banyan tree. And that's why, because the fruitive activities keep going, it is never going to finish. Even one lifetime of Brahma is less. So there is no end to this banyan tree. The tree of this material world has no end. And for one who is attached to this tree, there is no possibility of liberation. So basically, the living entity keeps going from one branch, keeps jumping from one branch to another branch, So, and then, so basic principle of bhakti is detachment from material activities and attachment to Lord's service. So that's the basic principle of bhakti. Okay, so we see that we did mention that, that the reflection is there. Let's come to, I think I'm going too much front and back. So the reflection of the tree where branches are downwards and the root is upwards. So when in the reflection, we see the roots are pointing upwards and the branches are all down here, right? So the branches of tree extend downwards and upwards, nourished by the three modes of material nature. So as long as we are stuck in this material nature, right? So the three modes of material nature, as we discussed in the last chapter, the 14th chapter, are goodness, passion, and ignorance. So when the living entity is stuck in these modes, so he keeps going again and again from one branch to another branch. And the twigs are the objects of senses. The tree also has roots going down. So as we can see, and these are bound to the fruitive activities of the human society. So as we mentioned, we are just doing the karma kandic activities. We are just trying to do something to get something. And that's why we are never coming out of this cycle. Okay. What else? Okay, so we go further. We see this is the reflection. So the reality is the Vatsalya ras we have in the spiritual world, which is the reflection we see in this world. We still have Vatsalya here also. So everything is coming, all the characteristics we see in the spiritual world are the real thing, but here we are seeing them as a reflection. We see the Sakya ras, right? And the spiritual world, and the same thing is also being reflected. So whatever is there in the spiritual world is being reflected into the material world. Same thing, the Madhurya ras. So it's part of the spiritual world, and that's how it gets reflected into the material world. So spiritual world is basically Vaikuntha, where we see, like in this case, Narayan and all devotees who have taken the same form as Narayan here. So this is Vaikuntha. So, and this is the material creation. And we see that Mahavishnu is there, and we see that from him, various planets are coming out, right? As he's breathing out, all these planets are coming out. So, does it cease do we see that if somebody is dreaming, right? So we see that Mahavishnu is sleeping in the ocean, and and it is said that his dreams is what we are living our life into. So our life is like, on this planets here. So it is from Mahavishnu, we are coming Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and then we go to Paramatma. So we go that so the material creation is happening like this, but it is in his dream. So he is dreaming and we are living in that dream. So we are living in the dream of Mahavishnu. So this is very interesting slide. And a reflection is temporary. Prabhupada mentions one of his purport, says that a reflection is temporary, for it is sometimes seen and sometimes not seen. But the origin from whence the reflection is reflected is eternal. So we see that this is the spiritual world from where the reflection is coming, and it is eternal. The material reflection of the real tree has to be cut. So basically, we are cutting the reflection of this tree. We cannot. So, and the purpose of the Vedas, as disclosed by personality of Godhead himself, is to cut down this reflected tree and attain the real tree of the spiritual world. So I hope that explains this section. Okay, we can keep going further. Okay. So we did mention that 96% of all the verses are karma kandas. Okay, and okay, the branches of the tree, we discussed this. Nourished by this thing, we already talked about that. Okay, so we already discussed that. See, in Bhagavad Gita, text 224 to 243, Lord Krishna says that men of small knowledge, they are called Veda, Vada, Rata, are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for the elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. So basically, those people, they think that this is what it is, that as long as we are getting high planets, we are getting great birth, we are getting power and all those things, lot of money, power, and all those opulences we are getting. So they think that this is what it is, and those guys are called Veda, Vada, Rati, and this is what Lord Krishna says them in 242 to 43. Okay, so yeah, we discussed that. The second verse, we said that it is bound to the fruitive actions of the human society. This tree is bound to the human fruitive actions, right? So because we have desire to enjoy, so we are stuck because we want to enjoy, not enjoy, but just enjoy the material world, which is separate from Lord. If we want to enjoy with the Lord, then that's a different attitude. Versus we just want to enjoy by ourselves, then it becomes a material enjoyment. So one can be free from the material world by the desire to go back to the spiritual world. So we need to have the desire. Because of that desire, we came down to the material world, and now if we have the desire, we can go back to the spiritual realm again. So as a tree is nourished by water, so this tree is nourished by the three modes of material nature. Sometimes we find that a tract of land is barren for want of sufficient water, and sometimes the tract is very green. Similarly, when particular modes of material nature are proportionately greater in quantity, the different species of life are manifested. So, as I mentioned that based on the quality and the desire of the living entity, he would be in the lower branches or he'll be in the higher branches of this tree. So now then, from 3 to 4, Lord Krishna is talking about how we can cut the tree. So he says that this tree can be cut. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. So he's saying very clearly, as I mentioned, that this material world is temporary, but this tree is imperishable. Interesting, right? And no one can understand the end and beginning of this or its foundation. This strongly rooted tree must be cut down with determination, with a weapon of detachment. So these two D's are important. D for determination and D for detachment. So if we have our determination, attachment, and our desire, the third D, we can go back to the Supreme World, Supreme Lord again. Okay. So yeah, I think we do know this example where one mother is cooking and her kids are, they're having their prashadam, and then the kids, they start to say, that they also want to cook. So they want to cook. So mother says, okay, you cannot. She tries to tell them this is how you cook. She tries to help them guide, but they want to say, no, we want to do independently. We don't want you to be interrupting with us. And mother knows that, okay, that is not safe for the kid to just start independently cooking. So she goes and gets an imitation cooking set, right? But for some time, the children, they are making, different special vyanjan, what we call in Hindi. So they are making those delicious dishes. And then in their mind, they're cooking everything. And then later on, they say no, they start feeling hungry. So then they don't know, they just want, they start crying, and then they want, their mother comes back and their mother still starts feeding them. So actually this is what is happening in the spiritual world and the material world, that we want to become the Lord. We want to start to control, right? Just like this child wants to control cooking, same thing, we want to control the material nature. Right? So and what is happening is, in the desire to control the material nature, it happens the reverse, because material nature is so strong. We are very minute. We cannot control it. So we become controlled by the material nature. So when we have desires to control the matter is, in fact, it happens the other way. The matter is controlling us. Just wanted to give this point. Go further. So why is this world created? So the spiritual world is permanent. God and his loving associates, devotees, eternally reside there, and material world is temporary, like a prison cell to rectify the rebellious souls who just want to say, okay, they want to be the controllers, they want to be the Ishwaras, right? So that's what, okay, you want to control, you want to try, okay, try it out if you can. So just like this child, he is building a sand castle. So important thing is that detachment is not sufficient by itself. Attachment is also needed. So just by being detached, it's not going to help us. Be like, the best can happen is that, okay, that but there is nothing, no positive action in there. So we also need a positive action, which is called attachment. So just being detached, we could just go into the Brahman, but we will not feel any satisfaction. After some time, we'll fall down even from Brahman. So attachment is needed. So that's why we have to detach ourselves from the material world and attach ourselves to Lord Krishna. So that's why we need to surrender to the Lord, And then how does this process of surrender happens? This is a very important verse where, before we go to that, we also see that sugar cane, right? Sugar cane and bamboo, they look alike, so because it's like just like the material world and the spiritual world. The spiritual world is more like a sugar cane and the material world is more like a bamboo. So so what we see, the spiritual world is like a sugar cane and material world is like a bamboo. There is no taste in there. You like another one here. So what Lord Krishna says is that after cutting down, one should go to the spiritual world. So thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that supreme personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and extended since time immemorial. Right? So we have to go back, we have to surrender to that Supreme Lord. So it is 1865, 1866. So this is the same idea is being again said by Lord here in 1504. Then, so Krishna is the supreme creator. You worship him, you surrender unto him, right? And once you surrender to him, you can go back to the spiritual world. So there's a process of surrender which has been given here in detail. So this is the important thing. So there is surrendering process. So those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with the material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, without bewilderment, attain to that spiritual kingdom. So here Lord Krishna is telling that how do we surrender, and who can surrender, and how and who can attain that spiritual abode of the spiritual world. So he is giving us a script here. He's saying, how do we surrender? So what are the things is that we need to be free from false prestige, illusion, and false association. So, and who understand the eternal, who are done with the material lust. So still the lust for the material life should not be there. Who are free from the dualities. So dualities is an important word, like of happiness and distress. And who are without bewilderment, attain to that eternal kingdom. Okay, I'll just put that again here. So how do we do that? So the process is that we have a spiritual diet and a spiritual exercise. The spiritual diet is Shravanam and Kirtanam, and the spiritual exercise is Seva. So that's why it is recommended that we put some time for Seva and we do our Shravanam and Kirtanam thoroughly, daily. Okay. So text number 6, that supreme abode. Now Lord Krishna has discussed that how he discussed about how we can cut this attachment, and then we can go to the supreme abode. And then how is that supreme abode? That supreme abode of mind is not illumined by sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. So these are the qualities, that it is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor fire or electricity. Like in the material world, the reason is that the material world is in the darkness always. If there is no sun or moon or fire or electricity, there will be darkness, right? But in the spiritual world, even the sun, moon, and electricity are there, versus if they are not there, it is always self-illuminating. So it is, it is the inverse of this world. So what happens is so that's why Lord Krishna is saying that it is not illuminated by sun or moon, nor fire or electricity. Okay. So good. Next point, what Prabhupada mentions here in the purport, he says, one should be captivated by this information. He should desire. Now he's saying now our desires have to change, right? Now instead of first we wanted to come down, our desire is to go back, right? Desire to transfer himself to the eternal world and extricate himself from this false reflection of reality. One should search out a society dedicated to Krishna consciousness and learn how to discharge devotional service. This important thing is that we have to keep discharging our devotional service. That is our diet and our exercise. And in this way, we can cut off the attachment to the material world. So we have to get attached from some place and get detached from some place. One cannot become detached from the attraction of material world simply by dressing himself in saffron cloth. He must be attached to the devotional service of the Lord. So these are the important points which were discussed in the purport for here. So next section is transmigration of living beings. So mind's power to determine the jiva's future and what is the identity of the living entity. So this is an important verse here. So let me go to this verse 7977. Okay. 77. Yeah, so it says Mameva Ansho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuto Sanatana Mana Shashtani Indrani Prakritistani Karshati. So he's saying that my certainly Amsha, a very important word, Amsha, is fragment, particle, Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. So Jiva Loke, in this world of conditional life, Jiva Bhuta is a conditioned living entity, Sanatana is eternal, Mana with the mind, Shashtani, the six, Indrayanis, senses, Prakriti in the metal nature, Sthani, situated, Karshati, is struggling hard. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. So in chapter 7, we discussed, right, that this material world, like our body is comprised of 8 elements: earth, water, air, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. These are the material energies. And what is the living entity? The living entity, beside this, oh mighty Amrajuna, there's another superior energy of mind. So this is superior energy. So Lord Krishna is telling that we are the superior energy, and which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. So living entities, they are trying to enjoy and exploit the material energies of the Lord. So the living entity so we did discuss this in the conditioned world are my fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard. So there is something called identification. So if we are identifying ourselves with the superior energy of the Lord, with the Lord, or then we would be going towards him. Or if we identify ourselves with the Prakriti, these 8 separated mental energy of the Lord, then we will be rotating in the material world. So we have to decide what we want to do. And that's done, so wrong identification leads to transmigration. Mind carries the soul from one body to another. Jiva obtains new ears, tongue, nose. Right? We discussed that in the beginning of the chapter. That the twigs are the object of the senses. So what is Amsa versus what is Amshi? So Amshi is from whom the Amsha is created. So it's just like, the Lord is complete and full, and from him all little parts are coming, which are also complete and full, but they're part and parcels of him. So there is no particular English word for part, Amsha, because part and parcel is, that's the closest it can resemble. And it's not a fragment. Fragment means if I have a piece of cloth and it is torn, or if I have a paper and I break into small pieces, then that's a fragment. But this is, an Amsha is a little different, where the quality are also maintained, right? And they are complete by in itself. It's not like, it's like, if I take a piece of paper or a cloth and I cut it, then the whole cloth is broken up. But in case of Lord, the Amsha means that even though those pieces are coming from him, but he still remains the whole. So it is Ishopanishad verse which says, I'm forgetting that. Sorry. It's Purnasya Purnamidam Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Shisate. Sorry. So okay, I'll just let it go because in the way to finish on time. So the living entity, being the fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, is qualitatively one with the Lord, just as the parts and parcels of gold are also gold. It is not that he assumes individuality in his conditional life and his liberated state becomes one with the Supreme. He is eternally fragmented. So he still remains his identity, even though he goes back to the Supreme. So he does not get merged into the Supreme. So more examples, like he says that Lord Sri Prabhupada mentioned that by his personal expansion, he has manifested in various forms like Lord Rama, Narsimha Dev, Vishnu Murti, and all the predominating deities in the Vaikuntha planets. The separated expansions, the living entities are eternally their servitors. So we are the servitors of the separated expansion of the Lord. It's like, very nicely said that like Lord Narsimha has all the potencies of Lord Krishna, like similarly, like Rama or like Buddha, like he has all of them. But it's just like, just when you look at the moon on the new moon day versus on the full moon day. So we can compare Lord Krishna as the full moon, right? Where he's showing all his opulences in full. Versus if you look at like with Lord Narasimhadev, we cannot have the Vatsalya Rasa, because he's not in that mood. Even though like he is having all the opulences and everything, but he will not be in the rasa of Vatsalya Bhav. So the point I'm trying to make here is that just like that moon, that on Ekadasi, it will be not fully reflective. Part of it is still, visible, bright, and the other part is dark. So not all the parts are reflecting itself, but on the full moon day, all the parts are reflecting. So Lord Krishna is like the full moon, where all of his energies, all of his opulences, all of his powers, everything is being 100% reflected to us. So that's why he's called, the most attractive. Go further from here. We'll start freshening now. We're almost close to 8 o'clock. So now go to 15.8. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So, so mind's power determines the jiva's future. So based on what is the conception of life, as Prabhupada mentions in this purport, he says that when the breeze is coming from from a flower garden, right? We can smell the fragrance, right? So it carries the aromas of the garden. But if it is coming from not a very clean place, then the breeze will be having the foul smell. The same way, based on our association with the material nature, our next our mind decides what is going to be our next body. Okay. Okay. So yeah, important thing here is in this 8th verse here he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. The soul carries his different conceptions of life in the mind as the air carries aromas. So here it's saying that the living entity is like a Ishvara. He's a Ishvara because he, like, Ishvara means here is not the Supreme Lord, but here the little controller, right? No, even though the living entity is very minute, but still he has some independence, and he's using that to control whatever he can. So that's why here living entity is being called an Ishvara. So based on his enjoyership mentality, that mind will decide what is going to be his next future body. Okay. So we do see that the cause of migration, transmigration, is the material mind and material ego, false ego. So basically, he keeps changing, living entity changing the body and then goes to another body from here. So at the time of death, the consciousness has been created. He will carry him to the next type of body. So the consciousness is a very important word here, because consciousness is reflecting that there is a soul or there is a living energy in there. But like now even intelligence is artificial, we know that. So so based on that, we can what happens is that he decides based on the consciousness whether the living entity, the mind, will want to take a body of a dog or a cat, or whatever he decides, right? So yeah, another thing is that the mind acts just not like a window, but also it acts more like a camera. So when we go to a window, right, we can see the picture. But if we have a camera, we take the picture of, then we can see it whenever we feel like. So our mind has been with us for because when we change the bodies, the mind also comes along. So it keeps accumulating all the impressions of previous lives. And so what happens is, so that's why we see that everybody has a different personality, even though they may come from the same family or same area, but their personalities will be different because the impressions in the mind are so different, because all the impressions have been coming over the countless lives times. Everything is there sitting in the mind. So when we when we go to read Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, or we listen to Lord Krishna's activities, our mind starts to get purified, right? And we start to meditate on those activities. And this experience, makes our mind pure. So with a purified mind, we are able to access the spiritual world. That's the point I'm trying to make here. So the living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So again, the mind decides what are the sense object it wants, as in the tree we know that, and based on that, it takes on the body. And not only that, even the karma also comes into picture here. So basically, if the mind wants certain things and the karma allows certain type of things to happen, based on that, Lord decides out of the 8.4 million species, this is the best species the living entity is going to acquire the body in. Okay. So yeah, so consciousness is originally pure like water, but if we mix water with a certain color, it changes. Similarly, consciousness is pure for the spirit's soul is pure, but consciousness is changed according to the association of the material qualities. So we see that it's a pure here, but here because it is getting impure because its color has changed. So Sri Prabhupada further says in the purport, he says that real consciousness is Krishna consciousness. When therefore one is situated in Krishna consciousness, he is in his pure life. But if his consciousness is adulterated by some type of material mentality, in the next life he gets a corresponding body. Just like, we see that rice is white, pure, right? But we add pulao masala, it becomes pulao rice. We would put puliodra into that, it became puliodra rice. We put mint into that, we become mint rice or yogurt rice. So basically, based on what we add to the pure thing, it changes. Okay. So next verse is, the foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try to. So transmigration of the soul happens, So he is leaving one body and then souls traveling who can and who can't see, So here Prabhupada mentioning this purport, he says that one who is trained to perceive all these things is fortunate. Persons who are ever lastingly fooled by lust and desire lose all power to understand their change of body and their stay in a particular body. Those who have developed spiritual knowledge can see that the spirit is different from the body and is changing its body and enjoying in different ways. In the present day, there are so many so-called yogis, and they are so many so-called associations of yogis. But they are actually blind in the matter of self-realization. They are simply addicted to some sort of gymnastic exercise and are satisfied if the body is well-built and healthy. They have no other information. This is called yatato api akratmana. Okay, so now Krishna is the maintainer of the universe. This is the next section, section 3. So here, the splendor, Lord Krishna says, the splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of the fire are also from me. And I enter into each planet, and by my energy, they stray in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. So, it's not that when we reach the spiritual world, Krishna is going to maintain us. Even in the material world, Lord Krishna is still maintaining us. We know that it's the sun which is running the whole show. Like just because the sun, the whole world keeps running, and it's the moon and the fire. Without the fire, we can't even cook our food. So and Lord Krishna is saying that he enters into each planet. He enters like as the in the as a Paramatma. He enters into each and every soul. He enters into each and every atom, and then because of that he is able to everything is able to sustain in its own place. So Krishna is our maintainer at the cosmic level. So without his mercy, there cannot be sun. Without his mercy, there cannot be moon. Without his mercy, there cannot be fire. And without the help of sun, moon, and fire, no one can live. These are some thoughts to provoke Krishna consciousness in the conditioned soul. The idea is, Lord Krishna is saying that there are so many reasons for us that we can think of Lord Krishna. We see the sunlight, we can think of him. We see the moon, rising moon. We see the setting moon. We see the fire. We can all these little things should make us remind of him. Okay, it is understood that all the planets are floating in the air only by the energy of the Lord. The Lord enters into every atom, every planet, and every living being. When the spirit soul is there, a living man can float on water. But when the living spark is out of the body and the body is dead, the body sinks. Similarly, all the planets are floating in space. This is due to the entrance of the supreme energy of the Lord. So if someone holds a handful of dust, there is no possibility of the dust falling. But if one throws it into the air, it will fall down. Similarly, these planets which are floating in the air are actually held in the fist of the universal form of the Supreme Lord. So, and then look, this one, Lord Krishna is saying, I become the moon and supply the juice of life to all plants and vegetables. 1514 is, okay, it's not just, he also helps us, maintain at our personal level. How? At the personal level, I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities. I join with the air of life when we are breathing, right? Hare Krishna. Rama Krishna. Sorry, yeah. Okay, thank you. So, okay, I am, so he's also maintaining us at the personal level. So Krishna is the digestion fire. He says here, I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of living entities, and I join with the air of life. Yeah, so when we breathe, outgoing and incoming, we are getting the energy, and he helps us digest the 4 kinds of foods. Since he is helping the digestion of all kinds of food stuff, the living entity is not independent in the eating process. Unless the Supreme Lord helps him in digesting, there is no possibility of eating. He thus produces and digests food stuff, and by his grace, we are enjoying life. So even in this material world, we cannot enjoy life without the grace of the Supreme Lord. 1515, it's a very important verse. Let's Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivisto matha smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedescha sarva aham eva vedyo vedanta krid veda vid eva chaham. So I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So, like when a living entity takes on a new body, right? So the Lord Krishna, is just like he initiates all the activities in this body. So that's how at the personal level he is helping us. So when this living entity is acquiring the body, now he will remember based on how much the Lord decides. He is going to get the remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So that is controlled. Those parameters are controlled by the Lord. By all the Vedas, I am to be known, and indeed I am the compiler of the Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So compiler of Vedanta is Vyasadeva. He is an expansion of Supreme Lord, and all the Vedas say that we should know about the Veda, like Lord Krishna. So all that's why he said that by all the Vedas, I am to be known, and I am the knower of the Vedas. And Lord Krishna gave the Vedas to Brahma, and from him, it came further down. So that explains it. Further, now what is the summary of the Vedas? So this is the last section, 4th section. So there are 2 classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and the spiritual world, every living entity is infallible. So when we say fallible, it means that we deviate from the true nature. Our true nature is we are eternal servants of Lord Krishna. So, but our soul has a tendency, because of our desires, to associate with impure matter. But when we say it's infallible, so they are in the spiritual world. So these living entities never forget that they are the eternal servants of the Supreme. And these are the pure devotees. So these are the 2 types of living entities. Here the Lord is giving in summary the contents of Vedanta Sutra. As long as the living entity is conditioned, his body changes due to the contact with matter. Matter is changing, so the living entity appears to be changing. But in the spiritual world, the body is not made of matter. Therefore, there is no change in the spiritual world. the material world, the living entity undergoes 6 changes: birth, growth, duration, reproduction, and then dwindling and vanishing. These are the changes of the material body. But in the spiritual body, in the spiritual world, the body does not change. There is no old age, there is no birth, there is no death. So, further than, besides these two living entities, the Shara and the Akshara, the fallible, the infallible, beside these two, there is the greatest living personality, the supreme, the soul, the imperishable Lord himself, who has entered the 3 worlds and is maintaining them. So here, the super soul is beyond Shara and Akshara. Okay. So the 17th verse discusses that beyond Shara and Akshara is the supreme Purusha, the Paramatma. The purport is that amongst all the living entities, both conditioned and liberated, there is one supreme living personality, the supreme personality of Godhead, who maintains them and gives them all facility of enjoyment according to different work. So further, Lord Krishna says that because I am transcendental beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in this world and in the Vedas as the supreme person. So he is beyond the fallible and the infallible, is the supreme super soul, Paramatma, and beyond the super soul is the Bhagwan, right? So he is the supreme Lord. The living entity and the supreme Lord are individuals. The difference is that the living entities, either in the conditioned state or in the liberated state, cannot surpass the quantity, the inconceivable potencies of the Lord. 15:19 is, whoever knows me as the supreme personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharata. So once we know that everything is coming from Krishna, and we start engaging in full devotional service to him, we can know the Supreme Lord, who is the knower of everything. The last verse is, this is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. So basically, what we understand is that there are 4 categories of personalities. Shara are the conditioned soul, Akshara are the liberated soul, the residents of the spiritual world. Super soul is who maintains the spiritual material world, which is filled with conditioned souls, right? And Krishna or Bhagwan, he is the boss of the spiritual world, who expands himself as the super soul and maintains the material as well as the spiritual worlds. So this is the summary of the Vedas. So the Lord is said to be the sun, and ignorance is called darkness. Where the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Therefore, whenever devotional service is present, under the proper guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, there is no question of ignorance. While one is performing bhakti in the association of devotees, one has to vanquish the weakness of heart. And what is the weakness of the heart? Is that we need to, the desire to lord over the material nature. Because the more we try to lord over the material nature, the material nature will lord more on us. One increases the propensity to lord it over material nature, he becomes attached to the matter and the possession of matter. Okay, with that, we can conclude today's session. Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, always to Srila Prabhupada. It was a wonderful, wonderful class, Prabhuji. Very nicely explained this like summary of the 15th chapter. One thing which is little confusing or which is not clear to me is about the first analogy of the banyan tree. So like why are the what I didn't understand is about the roots. Like why are the roots going upwards for this banyan tree?
Okay, so it's the roots are always supposed to go down, but because this is a reflection here, right? As we see that, let me go back. Yeah. So because if we look at the reflection, it seems the roots are going upwards, even though in the real world they are supposed to go down. But in this conceptual banyan tree, because it's not a physical banyan tree. Lord Krishna says in verse 4 himself, you cannot see it actually in this physically in this world. So because of the reflection, that reflection is of desire of the living entity, and those desires can only be fulfilled, um, you know, so to fulfill those desires, he wants to come in the material world and enjoy separately from Krishna. So we see it is being reflected in reverse order. So that's the idea, Mataji. I don't know if I help you understand that.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. So you mean like the entire tree, like you said, is nothing but the reflection of the desires of the living entity?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, it's the reflection of the desire of what the living entity wants to do in this world. That's so the desire is it's just like a mirror. The desire is just like a mirror here. Go back there. So the desire is just like the mirror. If you see the second slide here, so it's like a reflection is happening based on the desire, and based on that, he decides to come down into the material world because he wants to do certain things separately from the Lord.
Okay, yeah, got it, Prabhuji. So so this is the material tree, and the source of this material tree is the desire, and that's how we keep getting entangled. But it is also called as a reflection of the spiritual world, no, Prabhuji? Like this tree
Right.
is the reflection.
Yes.
So all
That's correct.
the attachments that we have with different people is nothing but the exactly the same replica of what our different rasas are, with like how we share the different relationship with
Right.
Krishna.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's correct. Right.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, it's a nice class. Definitely, I got an opportunity to learn new things from today's session. Yeah, one point I like what it is. You mentioned like daily learning Gita and sharing. So, and it is also one of the prescribed duty for Grihastha. So every Grihastha must and should at least read or listen Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam. So if it is possible for you, read it. If it is not possible for you, or at least listen. So that is one of the mandatory principle for every Grihastha. And second is Atidhi Deva Bhava. So that is if any guest come to your home, treat him as a Atidhi, so Atidhi Deva Bhava. And we also offer daily puja, dopa, deepa, naivedya. So that is one of the responsibility for every grihastha. So you covered all the points very nicely, Prabhu. So just I would like to add these points. And also today, I one point on that cow buttermilk. So if you drink cow buttermilk, that helps a lot for retina, and that helps to it makes a very strong heart. So heart diseases will not come. So that is a new point I learned today from drinking a cow buttermilk daily. So just would like to add one healthy tip, Prabhuji. So thank you so much for giving the valuable points in your presentation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Yeah, the most important thing is how we can purify our mind, because everything, our future next birth is decided based upon our mind. So whatever impressions our mind has, we need to purify them, because we have very bad impressions, or bad, conditions we have from previous birth. So I'm just adding to that point. So once those things are purified, and they are the anarthas, the 6 anarthas we have in our heart: lust, envy, greed, pride, illusion, and envy. So when we when they are purified, right? Then we become eligible. It's just like somebody has to get a license, driving license. So we have to go through those 6 points, right? For New Jersey, until you have those 6 points, they won't allow you to get the license. The same thing, until we have the 6 anarthas, satisfied or cleared up, we will not be able to, enter into the spiritual world. So that's all the effort is around this point. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavanam, all Krishna Prabhupada. Prabhuji, you discussed about 4 personality like Chara, Akshara, Super Soul, and the Krishna. So Super Soul, you said like Super Soul maintains the material world and filled with conditioned soul. So what does it means like filled with conditioned soul? It's a part of conditioned soul or what it is?
Okay, good question, Mataji. Actually, like when Lord Krishna expands, right? He expands all the way from Krishna, PC, Balram, and then the 4 quadruple expansion and the second quadruple expansion, Narayan, and the second quadruple expansion. It keeps going on all the way until Mahavishnu. From Mahavishnu comes Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and from Garbhodaksha Vishnu, the Paramatma expansion happens, right? So the Paramatma then enters into the material world, into each and every living as a super soul in the heart of a living entity, or it enters each and every atom of this material world, and that's how this whole thing is being sustained. The material world is sustained, and because if the living entity is conditioned, he will be in the part of the material world, right? When I say conditioned, means he will be under the mode of the 3 modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Then he will be part of the material world. But if he is beyond this, automatically becomes part of the spiritual world. So, because Paramatma is part of the material world, so as Paramatma, Lord Krishna is sustaining all the conditioned living entities. But but in the spiritual world, there is no Paramatma, because it's like a relationship we have with the Supreme. It's the Bhagwan, right? In the spiritual world, we have Bhagwan or we have Brahman. So, but we don't have Paramatma. Paramatma is more into the material world. I hope that explains it.
Yes, Prabhuji. So it means that Paramatma is part of our, like, it resides in every atom of this material world. So
yes, yeah. It's just like, nowadays, like we talk about all these chips, right? Those small chips. So even a phone will have so many chips, right? And car will have one chip. This computer will have a chip. So a chip can be analogous. I'm not saying exactly, but it's like the idea I'm giving the analogy is like analogous to the Paramatma. So, and now they are thinking of putting a chip even in the human body also, so like I'm just trying to tell you. So the same concept is happening. It's a reflection of the spiritual world, where there's a chip, the Paramatma is sitting in every living entity and also in every atom.
Yes, Prabhuji, I got it. Like, conditioned souls are only part of this material world. So that's why super soul is described like that. Yeah.
You're right. Thank you. Anybody else? Simesha Prabhu, over to you, Prabhuji. I think I'm done from my end, and there are no more questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was quite nice class. Went very detailed about the Supreme Lord and how he manifests, and who he is, and what the living entities are. Is amazing, and this is one of the last verse mentioned is the most confidential knowledge. We have the chapter 9, does the most confidential knowledge, Rajavidya. This surpasses that. This goes beyond, reveals that what exactly the Krishna Supreme Lord is, what is this material world is, who are the living entities are, what is their duty, and how the mind and as Paramatma is pretty much covering everything. So that's why this is a very important chapter. Like whenever there is a certain specific functions, and especially there is a death and all happens, So everybody try to read this chapter so that the soul can hear it, at least at the last moment of this, the lifetime. It's a very, very important chapter. Everybody can read this chapter every day. Yeah. Let me, I think some echoes are there. Yeah, so everybody should read this chapter every day. It reveals that wonderful depth of ocean of, the realization and understanding. And it's a very, very important chapter in Bhagavad Gita. This is one of the chapter everybody has to read every day. It's beautiful. Thank you so much, Roji, for taking us through the this beautiful chapter. And before we conclude, the devotees, anything anybody would like to add or anything like to share?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Anjana here.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Then do all Guru Shashtra.
One confusion in my mind, like for this spiritual world, like how we need to detach from this material world and attachment to the Lord Krishna. So do we have to do this only by ourselves, or like if still there is attachment, like my family should do the same thing and then get attached to the Krishna, my friend should join this and get attached to the Krishna, like the mind is still thinking about all I know, my near and dear ones should get attached to the Krishna. So is that a desire, attachment, or what it is?
It's a very, very interesting question, Mataji. It's just like when I get a headache, right? I will go and take a medication, say aspirin, right? Now anybody who gets, and I see visible results. The next thing I'll do is I get again, and I see somebody else going through the same pain. I will say, you know what, you should go and take aspirin, because aspirin will relieve you of the pain. It's as simple as that. So when you're saying, the idea is that we should not, we have to be taking the same medication, but at the same time we should also be, encouraging others to take the medication. It's because otherwise, it's like we may be cured of the symptoms, but when we see somebody else going through the same pain or through the same difficulties, we realize that that he also has to. That's why we have those, the 9 ways of devotional service. We have those 9 ways, and because what can happen is, because some certain things are convenient for some people are good in chanting, I know Satyabhama Mataji, thanks Mataji so much. So she is so good in chanting, but I see Simeshwar Prabhu, that he is good in both chanting and studying, and a person like me, maybe I'm just good in hearing. So everybody has his own strengths. So based on of the 9 processes, whatever is more, basically there are 9 ways to obtain the same goal, nine different ways. And whatever works for somebody, but as long as the goal is achieved, that's the objective. So it could be an aspirin or another version of aspirin. So I'm just trying to put it in simple words. I hope that explains.
Like the way I'm thinking, I like if we start thinking exactly like how these chapters are, and the question coming to my mind, like am I the still lonely or only kind of person, like trying to attach myself to Lord Krishna, or like how I want to see myself, like around Lord Krishna doing same things with my near and dear ones?
Yeah, actually, it is like, when you do an online university or doing an online course. I don't know if we have ever done that, but we go through the system where you have a certain speed. So at your own pace, right? In your own space, at your own pace, and in your own space, you can keep doing it. But until the purification of those 6 anarthas happens, we are not qualified to get the license. As we said, like for New Jersey, we need to have 6+ points, right? So similarly here, we need to get those 6 things out cleared, and then we can go and get our license here. Okay, I hope that explains, Mataji.
But it was a big chapter. We need to go over this over and over again.
No, it's not big. It's just 20 verses, Mataji. It's a little deep. There's something called big chapter because it's just 20 verses.
It's not like previous chapter summaries. No, it's a big lesson. I got it.
Because it's a yoga of the Supreme Person. That it's the Supreme Personal. Like it cannot be something small. It has to be something grand, right? And
it is grand.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming the coming chapter summaries are going to be more grand kind.
I cannot comment on that, but yeah, definitely this is even though it's just 20 verses, but there's a lot of philosophy in there. That's why it looks little deep. But other than that, it's okay. It's not that bad.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. There is one section in Srimad Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj, Lord Narasimhadev appeared to kill Hiranyakashipu. And then Lord killed Hiranyakashipu, and Prahlad was Hiranyakashipu's son. And then Lord asked Prahlad Maharaj, please ask me some wounds. Please ask me, what are you to? Prahlad Maharaj said, oh Lord, devotional service is not a business that I do something and then I ask for something from the Lord. This is not a business that give and take. I do not wish anything that in return that if I do anything from the Lordships. Then Narasimhadev very much understood the mood and the sincerity and the devotion of the Prahlad Maharaj. The Lord fulfills, even though we don't desire anything, Lord will take care of everything. And anything that which is needed for that devotee, Lord will take care of. So here, Hiranyakashipu understood the heart of Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj wanted to have his father to be delivered. You know what? Prahlad Maharaj just mentioned that if you're insisting me, please deliver my father. So what Narasimhadev replied? Narasimhadev mentioned the 21 generations. The 21 generations are already liberated. Not only Hiranyakashipu, but 21 generations on the lineage are already delivered and liberated. So this is a great lesson for all of us that whoever, even one person in the family, sincerely desire for their nearby, their whoever, if that devotion is sincere, Lord will take care of those. It is not attachment. It is a quality of a devotee. There are 26 quality, and out of that 26 quality of devotee, one is called compassion. Paradukha dukhi. Devotee is this nature. This is transcendental nature. This is eternal nature. So when a person is think about others for their well-being, their benefit, and to rather than thinking all the negativity or bad, but thinking good and well-being, and even thinking of how they can get liberation is a transcendental quality. It's not attachment. Yes, you can say maybe an attachment, but it's a transcendental attachment that one should get Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada was very much thinking like that way. This was guided by Sri Krishna. So all these people around the world got benefited by that just one thought of it. And not only that thought of the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, the spiritual master, go and preach so that everybody else get benefited. So that's also Krishna consciousness. Preaching is also Srila Prabhupada says chanting. Talking this to other people is also chanting. Getting others some way or other, not forcefully, whatever in the capacity of us, is also preaching and also chanting, and that's also the internal spiritual qualities of a devotee. So it's not attachment, it is a devotional quality. It's called compassionate nature, paradukha dukhi, and that should be continued, and we should be always pray for others. Be always compassionate for others, or should be always considerate for others. Not that, okay, don't do anything and go to the forest and sit there, do nothing, just meditate. No, rather than one who is a grihastha or one who is a social, those who are associated with the community and work for the community, the well-being of the community, the family and the children who are his associate, they are the topmost devotees. And Krishna likes them. That's where in the 12th chapter, right? We went through that. There are so many
Yes, yes. Mhm.
how Krishna likes and dear to each and every one of. That's exactly the teaching.
Thank you, Prabhuji. You helped me understand with a very nice example of that Bhagat Prahlada. And just the confusion that came to my mind. One side, I'm like trying to be close to Lord Krishna, and another side, I'm thinking about my loved ones and the other beings. So, like, am I doing something wrong? Like stepping forward or still getting stuck in the same place, moving backward, thinking about like others. But now you made it clear. Thank you, Prabhuji.
And that's a wonderful quality of a devotee.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Anybody else before we conclude? It's 8:36. Okay, so let's conclude. And today is also very important day. It's Srivastako's disappearance day. Everybody knows. No, that's on the 12th, June 12th. Okay. Yeah, few announcements. Tomorrow is Ekadashi, Yogini Ekadashi. Fast from grains and beans, and please try to do. And it's very, very auspicious. And to fast on the Madhu Tithi, this is considered as the day of the Lord. So I said, one who claims to be a Vaishnava, a devotee, must always, observe the Madhu Tithis. So fast from grains and beans, and we'll be announcing the Parna time, the fast breaking time on Wednesday. Then also next Tuesday is the Jagannath Rath Yatra. The 19th, the Snan Yatra, and then after Lord went to the seclusion period of 15 days, and Lord will be rejuvenating and coming out so nicely on the 19th. And then 20th, we'll have a beautiful Rath Yatra at the temple, and we request all of you please join. These are all what we call it as entering into the spiritual realm, going away from or coming out from the material plane and coming to the spiritual plane. All this Leela, all these pastimes of the Lord happens into the spiritual plane, not in the material plane. Some people say, oh, this is a card made up of that, this, those. Nothing. It is one of the pastimes of the Lord, especially Rath Yatras and Janmashtami and all. So please join. And also we have 24th Atlantic City Rath Yatra. We have a bus, right? Sankarshan Prabhu, bus is going, right?
Yes, Prabhuji, bus is going, right, Prabhuji. I will send the details soon. Give me a couple of days.
Yeah, so that those who would like to go by bus, so please contact Sankarshan Prabhu. Bus is going from the temple to Atlantic City, and it's quite convenient. That's on 24th. Also, Gundija Marjan is happening on Sunday, 18th, and that's a Father's Day. And there'll be some service in the temple to clean up everything. Just before the Yatra, this was a tradition and a custom, clean up all the places, that means Lord is going to come out. The Supreme Lord is going to come out. So when the Lord comes, everything should be extremely clean, extremely pure. So devotees are planning to have some Dija Marjan, that means cleaning, Marjana means cleaning. And our temple will be cleaned on Sunday, so please join. Also, there are a few other services of cooking for the Atlantic City. Please contact Jaipraj Prabhu. And this is the way that we can come out slowly from this material contamination and entanglements. And it's quite amazing, quite wonderful that the service to the lordships is not, it's the will of the Lord. It's the mercy of the Lord. So please join. And yeah, that's it for today. And please join tomorrow as an Ekadashi. Tomorrow will be taking the 16th chapter, which is considered as the titled as the divine and the demoniac. So we'll see that who is the divine, who has the divine nature, who has the demoniac nature, and we can have some introspection. Please join, and thank you so much. And let's conclude here. Thank you, Sankarshan Prabhuji, for a wonderful class. Let's conclude with praying. Vancha kalpatarubhashya Kripa sindhubhyeva cha patidanam pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo namo namah.
Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Srimad Gita ki jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai. Ananda Kol Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Gaura Premanand. Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Sankarshan. Thank you.
Prabhuji.
Hare
Hari Krishna. Hari Bol.